Jeff special pop-up open lines. Going to get the chat up there, so you got everybody tap in with us in the chat there. Of course, you can go get it on Amazon. Out of Bounds, Yuba County 5. It's the anniversary, so we're going to get into it. I also recommend you guys check out the Netflix episode. We'll be covering that. I see all the druids starting to populate into the chat, so that's a good time to get the man of the hour. So with this, Mr. Beeson, DrewBeesonAuthor.com, and is it DrewBeesonBooks.com? And we want everybody to go pick up Out of Bounds.
Definitely.
What's up, guys?
And you also and you also want to pick up this great book about Yuba County 5, Things Aren't Right, by my good buddy Tony Wright. This is the Bible on the case. Bizarre as hell, of course, is one of the great comments that happened back in the day when the boys disappeared. But it's an awesome book and a great read. And they kind of go well together. If you buy them both together, they really kind of complement each other, in my opinion. But Tony had full access to the case files when he wrote his book here, Things Aren't Right, by Tony Wright. So I love that play on words, but fantastic book. It's on Amazon. It's doing really well. It's published by Genius Books. Like I mentioned, that was Mark Hewitt's publisher as well. And he's got some great stuff. I think somebody that wrote a book on Kurt Cobain was published by Genius Books. I know you know a lot about the Kurt Cobain deal.
I do.
Shout out to Genius Books and shout out to Tony Wright. I
wonder if that was Hank Harrison. I think I have that in my.
It might be. If somebody jumps on the nose, please let me know.
Absolutely.
And then of course I'm wearing my UC Davis Aggies shirt. Tony has one as well, and that's our tribute to the boys from that went missing in the Yuba County 5, because this was their favorite basketball team. Of course, they're based out of Sacramento, California, and they lived in the Yuba City area, just a little bit north of Sacramento. So this was their favorite basketball team, which started it all.
Yeah, absolutely. That Drew and Tony got the swag there. Yeah, I don't know. We're trying to get a hold of Tony. We definitely want to get him on at some point. I think he might be tied up tonight, so it is what it is. Can't get everybody for every show, but I'm sure Drew will get him soon.
Yeah, his daughters are a little under the weather, and it's Tony's up in Michigan, so it's super cold there now. I got another buddy in Michigan, and he says, "Man, you never get used to this cold." My other buddy in Michigan, I think he's a little further north than where Tony lives, but he says, "Man, I grew up in Detroit, and then he moved to further north in Michigan, and said, you don't ever get used to this cold, man. I don't care what anybody says." And I think he's 61 now. So he said, whoever says you get used to this cold is full of it.
Yeah, I hear it. I mean, me being a New Hampshire born and bred in northern.
That's right. I played for New Hampshire,
Massachusetts. So I put those times behind me for a reason. Yeah. But
San Diego, or it's pretty consistent in San Diego, right?
Yeah, really, really consistent. Yeah, I ran away to the West Coast warmth. A couple of things we could plug. There's the Mopac Audio podcast.
Mopac, yes, by Shannon did that, and she did a great job on Mopac. That's really the thing that got it all started. And that was originally going to be a film, and I can't remember what happened, but it wound up being a podcast instead of a film. I think it's because maybe one of the families wouldn't participate or something happened, and it wound up being a podcast, and they were allowed to use all the material they had together for the film, which was never made. So they last minute changed it into a podcast.
Yeah, it came out outstanding. So it's Yuba County 5 by Mopac Audio and Glassbox Media. So you can guys go check out the trailer on Spotify or whatever you listen to podcasts on. We could maybe talk about that little reveal there at the end, maybe later on, Drew.
The reveal. Yeah, we can talk about the reveal in the podcast, and it's by
you and me never talked about that.
So. Mopac is a division of I think it's called Megalo Media, and that's by the son of Dr. Now, as we call him, that did 600 Pound Life, which is a small world because he actually leases his doctor space from me in Houston. So it's kind of a small world.
Nice. I believe that. And then I definitely want to make sure we plug Tony's episode from the Netflix series. I don't know exactly.
Mysteries. What was the name of the whole? It was three different mysteries in one presentation. I can't remember. What's the name?
Files of the Unexplained.
Files of the Unexplained. I think it's the third episode. Is the Yuba County 5 one. I believe.
5 men who went missing in Yuba County 5, California in 1978. So, yeah, we're going to get into it. One thing is, when my homies always hit me up and they want to interview Drew, it's always Zodiac. It's always Cooper because of Paratrooper of Fortune. And I always tell them, ask them about Out of Bounds, So now,
yeah, you do.
Now I'm the dude. I'm always telling people like, hey, Drew's best case is the Yuba County 5, like, you know what I mean? You should ask him about this, you know what I mean? Because I think it deserves it. And then not that those cases aren't amazing and interesting, they are, but there's something way different about this and like the missing persons cases that Drew does, and specifically this one, because it's just, we're going to get into it, but it's just a totally unexplainable thing. And, even the deeper you go, there's just only so far you can go with this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just one of the greatest American mysteries of all time. I mean, I think it's up there with Cooper and Zodiac as far as the top 10. Amelia Earhart. I think it's up there with all those cases, and it's a case you would have never known about if it weren't for YouTube. It's one of those things. Yeah. It's kind of like the Outlaw Pass, and it's sometimes called the American The Outlaw Pass, referring to the case of the Russian hikers that went missing in 1959 in Russia. But if it weren't for YouTube, a lot of people would still not know about this case, and people that don't get on YouTube still haven't heard of it, which is insane to me. Because it's up there with, I think, Cooper and Ripper and Zodiac and all of those mysteries.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So we have the 5 boys here, Drew. Your book starts early on. You do a really good job of laying out the Gateway Project, and just there's kind of quite a bit that happens before we get up to what is tonight. Obviously, it's the anniversary of 1978. But Drew could maybe summarize a little bit. They're going up to a basketball game, and the disappearance kind of takes place after that. They have this big game themselves the following morning, so they had their uniforms out and stuff like that, and they're all pumped up, ready to play, and that's just all pumped up. Crazy thing.
Yeah, that's the thing that all 5 of these guys had in common was basketball. All 5 of them were part of something called the Gateway Projects, and that was something that it was a program that helped. I'd say you got to get the words right because they've changed so much over the years. They used to use the words mildly retarded, which are not updated words. So we always kind of steer away from that. But that was unfortunately the terms they used back in that day. They didn't have terms like cognitively impaired or on the spectrum, but those are words you hear more common now. But they were on the spectrum, all of them, except for Gary Mathias. He's the kind of the outlier in the case because Gary had schizophrenia. He wasn't cognitively impaired, but he did have a bad case of schizophrenia, which was under control at the time that he went missing. But his other 4 buddies were all on some level of cognitive impairment, which ranged from low to high, starting with Jack Madruga, who went by the nickname Doc because he watched a lot of cartoons. He liked Bugs Bunny, and he was always saying, "What's up, Doc?" So he kind of picked up the nickname Doc. So sometimes they interchange the words Jack and Doc. So hopefully I don't do that because it confuses people. But we're talking about Jack Madruga, who's the driver the night they went missing. And then you had Jackie Hewitt, who's seen as the most impaired out of the other 4. Then you had Ted Weir. Some people accidentally mispronounce his name as Ted Wire. It's not. It's Weir. It drives me crazy when I watch a Yuba video and they call him Ted Wire. I just want to throw my laptop out the window when they do that. But you had Bill Sterling is another one that kind of on the spectrum guy. Bill was a real religious guy. He liked going to hospitals and reading religious texts. So you had Jackie, Bill, Ted, and then Doc, also aka Jack Madruga, and then you had Gary, number 5, as the outlier. So all these 5 guys come together at a place called the Gateway Projects, where they would teach you a trade, and it was kind of like stripping cable wire for PP&G out there in California. They would kind of teach them that, and then but these guys were pretty normal otherwise. They were a lot smarter than people think. Even Jackie Hewitt, he could do more things than people gave him credit for. He could ride his little motorcycle around. It was like you still had to start the engine and drive it. So even Jackie got kind of a bad rap on some of these early videos about how impaired he really was. And his father absolutely hated when anyone referred to him as retarded or even mildly retarded, because they really just didn't understand these boys. They were all into girls. I'll tell you that. That's something that got drilled home to me when I finally interviewed their basketball coach after many years. No one had interviewed this man not since 1978. I finally interviewed him. His name is Bob Pinnock, and I finally got to interview him and talked about the boys. There was actually a 6th member of the basketball team, and they came together on a basketball team called the Gateway Gators, and it was a Special Olympics basketball team. And Gary Mathias, even though he wasn't like the other 4, was brought in to help them with their basketball skills. And they were really athletic guys. I mean, you can see pictures of Jackie with this just, biceps sticking out. I mean, these guys were ripped, and they were really good players, and they could take care of themselves. So that makes the mystery even deeper. But like you said, they were getting ready to play in a big Special Olympics tournament on a Saturday morning, which was going to be the next day of February 24th. Today's that anniversary of the night they went missing on a Friday. They were going to go see their favorite team play, which was the UC Davis Aggies, and they were playing in a place called Chico, California, which was roughly about an hour and a half. And I might be a little rusty because I've done Yuba in so long, but it was roughly an hour and a half northwest of Yuba City, the Yuba City area. So Jack loads up the car, and I can't remember. Tony knows it so well, the order of how everybody got picked up. But they're in Jack's 1969 Mercury Montego. Kind of illustrated here on Tony's book, even though that's not the exact car. But it was a good clip art piece, and people still give him grief about that's not the exact car.
Oh yeah,
but it's close enough, people.
Yeah,
but
concept art accuracy.
Yeah, I mean, you got to use what looks cool, okay? So don't give him grief about the car.
Never mind, the facts inside the book are incredible. If you care to open it,
are incredible. It's a great book, great book. But don't give him grief about the car. I think that might be a Nova. I don't know. But anyway, Madruga had a 69 Mercury Montego. I've seen people pronounce it Montego, but I think it's Montego. You can't get it all right. So anyway, he winds up picking up, I can't remember who he picked up first, but and I don't even remember who's sitting up front. Tony would know. I think it might have been Gary. Gary and Ted lived on the same street, I think, at the time. And at some point, I think only 2 of them were there. Like Tony even straightened me out on that when they went to Bill Sterling's parents owned a gas station in Yuba City called Mico, M-I-C-O, and they went there together to top off the car with their favorite team. The UC Davis Aggies play the Chico State Wildcats. So they ran up there. So they top off the car with gas. They said goodbye to Bill's parents, and then I think they picked up the other 3 boys. So now we got 5 guys riding in that 2-door car, the Mercury Montego. They're going up the highway to Chico to watch their favorite team play. And by all reports, they made it to the game. They watched the game. They all sat together. Actually, the editor of the Chico State Enterprise remembered seeing the boys at the game. And they were really quiet. They were kind of off by themselves. And this was a throwaway game. UC Davis was doing really well that year, and the Chico was awful. So it was a throwaway game. I don't know. UC Davis won by 30 points or something ridiculous. So it wasn't it wasn't in contention ever. Yeah. And anyway, the boys watched, I think, most of the game. They left after the game, and they went to a place called Bears Market. And it was just to buy some snacks for their trip home. One of them bought a Langendorf lemon pie, but there was a lady working there named Mary Davis, and she recalled vividly the boys coming in. They were in good spirits because their team won. And she remembered being kind of mad at them because they came in right at her closing hour. I don't remember what hour that was, but she got kind of mad because now, she was already kind of cleaned up, ready to go home, and just looking at her watch, and then 3 minutes before her time to get off, these guys roll in all happy and buying all this crap. And so she just remembers being kind of resentful about that. But anyway, she said they were in good spirits and did not remember anything happening after they bought their snacks and left. She remembered no brawl in the parking lot, nothing like that at all.
Yeah, there's a fight rumor. So you guys have
that's just a rumor that's a rumor that dies hard. So anyway, they we know that they made it to Bears Market and they left. That's all we know. and that's the last time the boys were ever seen all together again.
Last known sighting
was by Mary Davis.
Yeah, hometown to the game to Bears Market.
Left Bears Market. That's the last time they were all seen together. As we know, other than Joe Shones. Okay, I forgot about him. Don't forget about him.
Well, yeah,
but
saw them maybe.
That we know for a fact saw them all together was Mary Davis. Joe, Joe, we're not so sure about. He may have. We don't know.
We don't know what he saw.
We don't know what Joe saw. But the last person that definitely saw them all together was Mary Davis. So, of course, the boys don't show back up at home, and they had made this trip before, and they've done plenty of trips. Went to Sacramento a lot. Of course, that was closer, but they had made. I think they had gone up to Chico before, at least a few times, from what I know. And so it gets to be pretty late at night. I think the game ended around 10. I might be wrong on that, but they should have been home by 11, no more than 11:30. Even if they stopped, it gets to be about midnight, 1 a.m. So they all live at home at this time. All 5 of them, including Gary Mathias. And the mothers start getting worried. They're like, the boys should have been home. Like you mentioned earlier, at least 2 or 3 of them had laid out their uniforms to play in the game that next morning. Yep. And one of the mothers, it might have been Madruga's mom, called Hewitt's mom. I can't remember the exact way it played out, and said, "Have you seen the boys? It's 1:30. They're still not home. This is way before the day of cell phones. We can't call." And they're starting to panic, getting around 1:32 in the morning. None of them are sleeping. None of the parents, because they know these boys are really good. They do what they say they're going to do. They don't go off partying. They don't do any of that. They're not chasing girls. They stick to a schedule. Yeah. And they knew they had this big thing coming up.
To just not
totally out of character
in the middle of the night.
For all 5 of them, including Gary, because Gary was pretty level. And Gary Mathias wanted to play in that game as bad as anybody. So that's that. I never got to go down the Gary road because he was pretty stable at the time. So they were due to meet up at Montgomery Ward's parking lot in Yuba City about 8 a.m. And when the 8 a.m. finally rolls around, none of the boys are home, and everybody showed up at 8 a.m. to see if they would show up at the rendezvous place to go up to a town just south of Sacramento to play. I can't remember the name of that town. I'm getting rusty, but of course the boys didn't show up, and they knew when they didn't show up to go play that game that something was really wrong. Absolutely. That's when the police got involved and the search was on. They were sending out flyers everywhere. The police, I think, I don't know what they used back then. I don't even know if the fax machine, they had some kind of teletype or something that the local police department used. So they put out a search for the boys and their names and pictures. And they put, of course, a description of the Mercury Montego. And I think it was a day or two, they found the car on a remote road way up on a road called the Oroville Quincy Highway near a very desolate road. Totally in the middle of nowhere, outside of a place called Rogers Cow Camp, which was just a camping site, north of a place called Mountain House, which comes up a lot in this story, a place called Mountain House. And Mountain House was destroyed by maybe the Bear Fire, if not sooner, but the Mountain House is gone, flattened. No more. It doesn't exist. I don't even think you can find it. I've had a couple friends go up there, couldn't even find Mountain House. But you can still find Rogers Cow Camp. But anyway, the police find the car, I think that Monday evening on the 26th, if I'm not mistaken. And so the search was on all that whole area around the car. So, of course, it's a blizzard had come in that night. Everything's blanketed in snow. It's very tough searching. There's no sign of clothing. The car was found with a quarter of a tank of gas in it. They hot wired the car to see if it would work, and it started right up. And the car wound. I don't know if it was driven back to Oroville, California. That was the closest bigger town, was Oroville, California. And I know they hot wired the car and got it back to Oroville in one piece. And it was stuck in the snow, but barely. 5 able-bodied basketball players could have easily pushed the car out.
Probably 2 or 3, and they had 5.
Oh, 2 or 3. They had 5. They had overkill.
Crazy.
And even the smallest one of them was pretty strong. These guys worked out a lot.
In good shape.
In fact, that's all they did. They were in really good shape. Strong, very strong, grown men. I mean, they were like little boys in men's bodies is what I call it to a big extent, especially the 4 of them. And Gary was pretty normal on his medicine, but it wasn't that big of a snowdrift where they could have just pushed the car out. So there is the beginning of the Yuba County 5. What happened? They found no trace of them anywhere near where the car was abandoned. And another thing to mention that's important is the driver's side window was rolled down when they found the car, and that would have never happened with Doc, aka Jack Madruga, who babied that car. He treated that car like, I mean, washed it obsessively. He refused to go down certain bumpy roads to not bottom out the underbody of the car to keep it perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So when the police towed it back to Oroville, they were stunned when they looked at the underbody of that car, that it wasn't even scratched going up that horrible rutted road. And it was really rutted that time of year. And they were stunned at the condition it was in. It was so good. Like, how could you even drive that road without rutting out this car? So they surmised that it was somebody that either really knew the road or was driving like micro slow or something, or knew where the pitfalls of the road were. Yeah. So that's an important thing to point out about the car. The window being down,
maybe
the
following,
bottom not being rutted.
This is like random, but maybe following someone that knew the road, because if they go around,
could have been
ruts,
that's the theory.
Just totally random, but
that's a big theory. And then, fast forward a lot. So the search is on. Nothing is found. The families are desperate. They're calling the police every day. One of the families calls in a psychic. I think it was Jack Madruga's mother knew a psychic, and they took it seriously. The police took the psychic seriously because they were so desperate to find these boys. The psychic came up with some letter numbers, and they thought that was an address to a house. So they go looking for the house that the psychic saw the numbers for, and they could never find it. The psychic leads didn't go anywhere. That's just how desperate they were. Yeah. So it's early June by the time there's any break in this case. We're talking
February
about
to June. It's pretty
February
long.
to June, February 24th to I think June 3rd. I might be wrong. Where's Tony? Early. I'll just say early June.
Mm-hmm.
There's some motorcyclists going through the Plumas National Forest.
Yep.
And I think they're on street bikes. I never know if that was ever determined what kind of motorcycles are on. And it would not have been an easy place to reach. They were on street bikes, and they stopped at a place called the Daniels Inc. Campground. Although the trailers, which they found, and I'll get into that, were really at a place called I'm trying to remember. It was not technically the Daniels Inc. Campground. It was called the Granite Basin Fire Camp, which was right next to the Daniels Inc. Campground. So I think the early news report said Daniels Inc., so they went with that. Kind of like DB Cooper. I like to relate that too.
Yeah, once it goes out.
Yeah, once it goes out, it's too late. So DB
Yeah.
Cooper, Dan Cooper becomes DB Cooper, and you can't get rid of it.
Yep.
I think that's what happened. I think somebody knew the nearest point was Daniels Inc., even though it was technically the Granite Basin. So anyway, these guys are up in the Granite Basin on their motorcycles, and one guy stops and takes his helmet off, and he's almost knocked over by the putrid smell of something very bad. And he thinks, man, there must be a huge dead animal near here. Because of the smell of a carcass or something. But he's looking around and he doesn't see the animal. So he sees these two trailers that are joined by one common deck. They're Forest Service trailers that are run by the Forest Service Department that are only maintained when they need them. They're not full-time maintained. It's only when they need them, like when there's a missing person or there's a fire up in the area. It's literally just there for the Forest Service to use in emergencies. But this one guy, he's got to figure out where the smell is coming from because it's so strong. So he walks up to the double decks that connects these two trailers, and the smell is getting stronger where he is. He sees that one of the windows has been smashed open. He walks into the trailer. I think the door is unlocked, if I recall correctly. And he walks in and sees the deceased body of Ted Weir laying on a bed with, I think, 8 sheets pulled up to his neck perfectly. Like someone had been taking care of Ted, but Ted was unfortunately deceased. I think he weighed around 200 pounds when he went missing. He was weighing about 110 pounds when they found him. Some of his toes had fallen off from the frostbite. His shoes were missing. Gangrene, frostbite and gangrene. I think 2 or 3 of his toes had fallen off, and you could see them fallen off. So he's obviously deceased. He had some of his personal effects on the table next to him, like a pinky ring and another ring. There was a gold Waltham watch found near Ted, and none of the families could identify that watch. No one ever knew who owned it. So to this day, that watch has never been identified, the owner of it. It wasn't Ted's. So anyway, the first part of the mystery solved. We found one of the Yuba County Five deceased in that trailer. So what are we going to do now? They start looking in the area of the trailer, and unfortunately, a lot of the families were involved, and they wanted to help out as much as they could. They know that they found a body, and they know that the rest could be near. So the police were literally telling some of the family members, "Do not come up here. We heavily advise you not to come up here." But these family members, like Jackie Hewitt's dad, were not taking a no for an answer. Yeah. That's my son. I'm going up here. I'm going to find my boy. And same with Bill Sterling's dad, Jim. They're going to go, I'm going to find my own boy. And unfortunately, they did find the remains of their sons. 2 miles or so. We don't know exactly how far from the trailer. I think 2 of them were still together, and all they found were bones, because the bones had already been ravaged by the animal predation in the area. They found Madruga's body. That one of his right arm had been dragged off near a creek. They found his left arm. Of course, just a skeleton at this point, but his I think his wristwatch was still on his left arm when they found his body. But it was a really sick deal. I think either his father or another family or a family friend picked up Jack's coat they found of his remains, and his backbone fell out of the coat.
It was his father.
Horrific. His father, horrific, just horrific.
Yeah, it's about the worst story ever.
There's a famous picture of Bill Sterling's father being consoled by a friend right after the authorities actually found Bill Sterling's remains, not too far away, I think, from Madruga. I don't remember, but there's a famous picture of him being consoled by his friend, and they found Bill's wallet, and Bill's dad said, "How do you know it's him?" And they said, "Because we found his driver's license and a picture of the twins, sir." He had 2 twin sisters that were younger, and they found a picture of the girls in the wallet. So he knew at that point his son was dead, and he just collapsed. He literally collapsed in the arms of his friend. It was so horrific. Of course, they found Madruga then, and they found Jackie. I think the next day, I can't remember. This played out over the next 3 days after they found Ted's body. So now they had everybody with they had the remains of everybody except for Gary Mathias.
Yeah, so 4 out of 5.
To this day, they've never found Gary Mathias, nor hide nor hair. There's several theories that Gary got out because he was just a scrapper like that, and he had been off of his schizophrenia medication for so long that he forgot who he was, and maybe he's in a homeless place somewhere and he just doesn't know who he is, or that he just got further away and perished from from hypothermia like the rest of them did, and they just couldn't find him because he was strong enough to get so far away that he was just never found. So to this day,
could have got him deeper into the wilderness.
Yeah, deeper in the wilderness. So Gary to this day has never been found. They had a sighting in a place called Brownsville because there was this weird theory that Gary Mathias had some friends in Brownsville that he bought weed from, and they may have taken a wrong turn trying to go see Gary's friends, and that got knocked down pretty quick because there was a sighting of them by a lady. I can't recall her name, but she saw them all in a red truck, and even the families of the Yuba County Five said no way they would have not have been in Docks, Montego. They're not going to be in some red truck, and her sighting was kind of corroborated by the store owner. And this isn't Bears, it's a totally different store in a place called Brownsville, California. And they caught up to the 2 friends of Gary. They said, "Did you see Gary that night?" And they said, "We haven't seen Gary Mathias in a year." They had nothing to lose by coming up with it. Like, they had some weed. The cops didn't care. They're just looking for the guys.
Yeah, they weren't busting that back then,
Yeah, that Brownsville angle is a total bunch of nonsense. So after that got blown apart, the main witness comes forward. His name's a guy named Joseph Shones. He's a local. He lives in a place called Berry Creek, California, which is just north of Oroville, California, where most of this happened, up in the Plumas National Forest. And Joe sees the news reports, and Joe's about 51 years old. He's got a son, a daughter, and a wife. He's constantly fighting with a wife. Their main course of business is the marijuana business. I know that for a fact. That's nothing that's no one heard. And
that's what I read.
Anyway, Joe's story is that he was up near Rogers Cow Camp. Well, no, Joe starts out at a place called Mountain House, which is about 7 miles away from Rogers Cow Camp, but going downhill. And Joe starts his night out at another bar I can't remember the name of, and then he makes his way over to the Mountain House, where I don't remember. They said he was pretty sober when he was there, even though he had quite a history of drinking.
Yeah.
But at some point, Joe leaves the Mountain House, and for some reason, we don't know why, he gets into his wife's VW Bug. It was his wife's car, actually. That's when you know you're into it, when you know the wife owned the car. But he drives his wife's VW Bug 7 miles uphill. And there's a lot of switchbacks, so this isn't some straight uphill drive.
Yeah.
And remember, it's February 24th. It's still pretty damn cold.
Yeah.
And you got switchbacks. Like you'll be climbing an elevation and then come back down a little bit and then you turn back up. So it wasn't just straight up drive.
Yeah,
so
like kind of zigzags up the
a rutted road in a VW Bug. I mean, a VW Bug doesn't have much of a suspension, okay?
No.
So I don't know how that would have worked out. But anyway, this is his story. So he gets up to the Rogers Cow Camp area around, I don't know what time, because he left. It was still daylight, I think, when he left Mountain House. So not sure how long it took him to go the 7 miles kind of up the road to Rogers Cow Camp, where it was much colder because it's higher in elevation. I think Rogers is around 3,000 feet. So it's pretty cold.
Sure.
It was unusually warm for that time of year, but it's still really cold. So anyway, he gets up there and he's up there in his VW Bug to stay warm. And at some point he has a mild heart attack, and he gets back into his VW Bug for the heat, which I assume that's an air-cooled car, so it should be moving to give off heat, unless you have an aftermarket heater. That's how.
Okay, that was going to be. So I know you interviewed Shones' son. Did you guys get to the bottom of the? Or was he sure?
No.
I
think his son told me he had an aftermarket heater, or he just recalled. I did talk to his son, and his son did remember that the car had heat. That's all I can remember of it.
Okay.
I don't know if he knew exactly what it had, but he remembered the car well, of course.
Okay.
But I think he just recalled it having heat, from what I remember his son telling me. But anyway, Joe's up there. He has the heart attack, and then he was trying to push his wife's VW out of the snowbank he got caught in. He gets nowhere, and that's what triggers the heart attack. It's him trying to push the car.
Yeah.
So he has the heart attack. It doesn't kill him. He gets back in the car for the heat somewhere. And when this story first got reported, there was 2 sightings, I think, of Joe seeing things behind him. But it's in actuality, in the police reports, there's only 1. And I can't remember what time of night it was. It may have been just after midnight that Joe sees some headlights coming up behind him in the VW, and a car stops with about I don't know how many car lengths, maybe about 70 yards from him, and he climbs up a snowbank, and he looks over the snowbank, and he sees several people get out of the car, and he screams out at the car and says, "Help me, help me! I've had a heart attack. Please come help me." And he knows that they should have been able to hear him, and they're not reacting to him at all.
Yeah.
And he can see the silhouettes of the people walking. He sees a woman. He claims he saw a woman that looked like she was holding a baby.
Yeah.
And God, people went off all over the place with that.
Doesn't make any sense.
Made no sense. And that's something he later told to his wife. That was not initially told to the police. That's a detail he later adds to his wife. So he's always building on the story, right?
Yeah.
So he says, "Please help me, please help me. I've had a heart attack." He thinks he sees flashlight beams for a while. Then they all get back in the car and they either leave or he can't see him again. He goes back to his VW for the heat. And at some point around 5 a.m. or so, the gas runs out of the car, out of the VW. So he's got no more heat. So now he makes a decision. What am I going to do now? I have no more heat, and I'm not dressed for the winter. So he makes the decision to walk back to the Mountain House. So he's walking downhill, but there's switchbacks. So some parts of that he's having to walk uphill. So there's 2 different versions of this story. He says one, he walks by Madruga's Montego, and at one story he says he thought about getting in the car to see if it would start or stay warm. Of course, the keys weren't in it. They did find the keys to the car on Madruga's body, by the way. That's a fact. So the keys were not in the car. The window was down, but in one story to the Chico Mercury Enterprise, I think it's the name of the newspaper, he said that he did get in the car and didn't start it, but looked around, didn't see any bodies, didn't see anything out of the ordinary other than some food wrappers that were left over from bears. And another story, the official account that he did not get in the car. That's why it's funny that changes a little
Yeah,
bit, because the
that's
story
interesting.
changes a lot.
I didn't know
The
that
story
one.
changes. Yeah, his story changes a whole lot. So one story to what I would call the local paper, which is the Oroville newspaper. That's the closest big town is Oroville, and in their newspaper reporting said that he did get in the car. So that how are they going to get that wrong? I don't know.
Yeah,
but anyway, Joe took about 4 hours or so to make this walk back from Rogers Cow Camp back to Mountain House, which is this. They have lodging, they have some, I think, a gas pump, maybe they have food, they have probably whatever you need at Mountain House. You can still find pictures of it on the internet. It's called Mountain House. If you look up Merrimack, California, or Chico, maybe it'll come up in that general area in between Chico and Merrimack. Merrimack's an old defunct town where Rogers was. But anyway, as the story goes, Joe starts walking back after having a heart attack. Remember this, not wearing any warm clothes. And he walks about 20 feet or so, and then he rests. Like he'll walk 20 to 30 feet, and then he'll literally lay down in the cold snow.
Take breaks. Yeah.
Take breaks.
Yeah.
I would think it would be better just to keep walking in that cold, right?
That's how all the Yuba,
that's his story.
That's how the Yuba 5 died, was because they laid down when they retired from the walk.
They got hypothermia.
Yeah, right. That's how
they died.
Story is like, you know what I mean? It's like a version of theirs, but like, I survived through it. It's like,
but he survived, even though he was way older than them. He was way older than them in his 50s.
Heart attack.
He was in terrible shape because he was an alcoholic, and that's true. I'm not saying anything that's not true. He was an alcoholic, and he had heart trouble. He had pre-existing heart trouble. He may have had a heart attack. I don't know. They later declared that he did have a heart attack. They just couldn't I think they checked the enzymes or something, but they can't pinpoint it to a day. That's impossible. I think
so. It's just
even modern medicine, modern medicine cannot pinpoint, but they did, determine that he had one around that general time frame. But anyway, he makes it all the way back to the Mountain House without getting hypothermia magically. He walks into the Mountain House. He makes his way up to the bar at the Mountain House, and he asks for 2 Bufferin. Maybe that's for his heart or something. He asked for 2 Bufferin tablets. He never said a word. He never said the word heart attack to anyone. That is detailed in the police reports. He never said the word, I had a heart attack, call the ambulance. Never, ever, ever said that. So
is Bufferin like an outdated Tylenol or aspirin? Did it like?
I think it's still around.
Yeah, okay.
I think if somebody in the chat knows, let me know. But I'm pretty sure Bufferin, you can still buy it. I think it's kind of like an NSAID, like a regular aspirin, kind of like a Tylenol. From what I know, it's not real powerful, but it's something that like people take aspirin for a heart attack. So maybe there's it's over the counter for sure. Yes. So he asked for 2 Bufferin. So he winds up. I can't remember the couple's name. Tony Wood. But a couple winds up agreeing to take him back home to Berry Creek, as it's pronounced up there. Creek, not creek, like we hillbillies say down here in Texas. It's called a creek up there.
Yeah, that's how us hillbillies up in New Hampshire say it too.
Yeah, basically they call it a creek, not a creek. Down here we call it creek, all right? But up there they call it creek. So it was Berry Creek. And I think that was about 10 miles away from Mountain House. But this couple who were dating at the time, I don't remember their names, took him home, and all Joe did, and this is in the police report too, I believe, all Joe did, they're giving him a ride back to his trailer in Berry Creek, and all he did was complain about the guys driving the whole way. He supposedly has this heart attack, and all he's doing is complaining like, man, you drive terrible. You drive like shit. I just found that hilarious.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
All he did was bitch about the guys driving. Like, give me a break, dude.
Yeah.
And then they make it to his trailer in Berry Creek, and he gets out. Doesn't say thank you, kiss my behind, or here's a nickel for your trouble. Nothing. He just jumps out of the car and he's gone. He doesn't say a word. That's typical Joe Shones, He's gone. And then what make it more interesting is that his wife, I think, was living in Sacramento and had another place down there other than Berry Creek. And she was coming back to Berry Creek. Maybe, I don't know, to get her car or to stay for a while or whatever. But as her story goes, she comes home. Joe is there on the couch or wherever. And he tells her what happened. He said, I was up near Rogers Cow Camp past Mountain House. I had a heart attack. I walked all the way home. Your car is still stuck up there. And her first order of business was what? not take him to the
Go
hospital.
get the car.
She went to go get that car.
Yeah.
That's a fact. That is a FACT fact. She did not call the hospital.
Response. Yeah.
She wanted to go get the car.
Yeah.
So she gathers her daughter, and they go to Mountain House first, and they said, "Hey, I heard Joe got the car stuck up the mountain." And they said, "Yeah, he came in here, and this couple gave him a ride home, blah, blah, blah." But from what we know and what he said, yes, the car is stuck up there by the not the Mountain House, the Rogers Cow Camp. And she goes, "Well, I'm going to go get it." So I think a local that was hanging out at Mountain House went with her and her daughter to go retrieve the VW Bug. So they go this harrowing 7 miles up the mountain without jumper cables or gasoline.
Yeah.
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
They had both of those at Mountain House.
Yeah.
They go up without either.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
I think they were just like you're coming to it, but I think that they were just rushing to get straight to it before anybody else.
Because they wanted to get something out of the car.
Seems like it, because why wouldn't you even stop to get the bare minimums? Like, it doesn't even take 5 minutes.
They had no jumper. Joe told him that it ran out of gas, and he told him that it wouldn't start.
Yeah.
At minimum, you're going to take at least a 2-gallon gas can and a pair of jumper cables. I mean, Mountain House had that stuff. There is no doubt. It's a big 2-story place. It had a gas pump, I think. It had a restaurant, like some food. It had lodging. You don't think they have a pair of jumper cables and gas at Mountain House? Of course they did.
Right.
So they leave without either one of those, and they go up to the car, and I don't know how long it takes them to get up there. They're going up this winding road. It's cold, and they make it to the VW Bug. And of course, by his wife's own accounts, she tries to pop the clutch to the VW, thinking that's going to magically start the car. Of course, it doesn't work with a flip. They tried to push it, pop the clutch again, no start, nothing. So the guy that I guess the Good Samaritan, I think they kind of knew him. I'm not sure how well. Tony would know. But they had to wind up driving back to the Mountain House unsuccessful. They couldn't retrieve the car. But did they get something out of the car? We'll never know. Right. But they sure were in a dead heat to get up to it.
Yeah.
So the following Sunday, they I think get a neighbor, and then they go by Mountain House and they say, "Hey, we're all here. I'm with Bill, our neighbor, and he's going to help us go get the car. We now have jumper cables. We have gas." And they go back up there, fill it up with gas, and jump it or whatever they did, and they got the car back. They drive on their way back from Rogers. They stop at the Mountain House, which is weird for Shones, and she made sure that they understood that, hey, we got the car, just letting you know. Yeah. We were able to start it, and I got it. It's right outside. We're going to drive it home now.
Came in and announced
kind of weird.
Everybody.
Kind of weird.
Like,
she announced it to everybody,
when no one was asking.
Really strange to me, because this isn't, Joe was always getting his car stuck in the snow up there, and people would push him out, and he would never say thank you, kiss my butt, here's $5, nothing. And she was the same way.
Yeah.
She was the same way. Yeah. So why does she make it a point to go back into Mountain House and say, "We got the car, we're good. Don't worry about the car anymore." Yeah. And we do know that the car was there because there was a cross-country skier named Bill Neal, Neal, and he had seen the car up there that Saturday morning after the boys went missing. So he saw it before they could remove it. And he also saw the Montego before they found it on that Monday evening. And one of the accounts of Joe was that he had vomited from having the heart attack. He had defecated all around the car. Well, Bill said that it didn't look like human excrement. It looked like animal excrement. And so there was some weird stuff going on there, like who's telling the truth. And the cops wind up interviewing Joe from the so his wife makes it back home with her VW Bug finally, and at some point later the evening on that Saturday, it might have been that Saturday, she gets back without unsuccessful getting the car, but she does take him up to the hospital in Oroville, and they I think determined that at some point around that time he may have had a heart attack, and he gets questioned by the police after he comes forward with his story, I don't know how many days later after it's first reported in the news, maybe 5-6 days. It was pretty soon thereafter that he comes forward with this story about being the last guy to possibly saw the boys. and the cops are interviewing him, and he doesn't like it. Like every time that the questioning gets too heavy for him, he says, "Oh, I'm having it's like Fred Sanford and Sanford's son. Oh, Elizabeth, I'm coming to see you, honey." I mean, he pulls that whole act, like, "Oh, you're stressing me out. I'm gonna have another heart attack." So every time they start pushing him, he pulls the old heart attack thing, And at one point, he leans back in his chair, and this is in the police files. He looks at the cops like all laid back in his chair like this, and he goes, "You think I got something to do with these boys, don't you?"
Yeah, I get
He
the
said
feeling.
Real matter of fact. Real matter of fact. He goes, I think I got the feeling you boys think I had something to do with these dudes. He called them dudes. He said, "I think you boys think I got something to do with the disappearance of these dudes." I'm paraphrasing, but he said something like that.
Something like
very
that.
odd. Very odd. So that's where we lie today. Other than I think we have made some progress between everybody in our group. I think we have identified the gateway projects that we talk about in the beginning, where they all came together, was firebombed. It was firebombed in 1975. There's an article about it in Time magazine. It was firebombed. Someone threw a Molotov cocktail through the window. Somebody killed the first director of the Gateway Project. I think it was Bill Garrett. Literally knocked on his apartment door, and he opened the apartment door, and they doused him with some accelerant and literally lit the man on fire.
Yeah, threw like a Molotov.
And killed him. Burned him alive. Yeah. Burned him alive in his own apartment.
Yeah.
And this was related to Gateway because he wasn't at Gateway. He was at his personal apartment, which was close by, I think. So that was like one of the first things was, does anybody think that the Gateway firebombings, which is a separate case, has anything to do with the boys going missing? But I think we did identify the firebomber for sure. A guy, I don't even say his name. His name's Mike Joyce, Joyce. We believe that he's the Gateway firebomber. We don't know if Mike had anything to do with the disappearance of the boys, though. But we do know 99% pretty certain that Mike Joyce was the Gateway firebomber.
Was it a personal thing between them, or what?
I think that his ex-wife was dating the director. Mm-hmm. They were. I think Donald Garrett. And I've spoken at length with his daughter, and when I said the name Mike Joyce, she almost jumped through the phone at me. Like, my mom told me that name for years. Like, she was just blown away that I said the name. Mm-hmm. And she goes, "My mom told me that's who it was for years, Drew." Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Whoa," but that's the name I was given.
Yep.
And she agreed with it because she had heard it when she was young.
Yeah.
When her dad was literally set on fire and died.
Yep.
What's odd about Mike Joyce, though, is that he owned a company called Mary Homes, and they built trailers.
Yep.
Well, Yuba County 5 was found in trailers. So if Mike Joyce made those trailers, we got a new case on our hands, but I don't know. Yeah. No one knows, but that's what he did for a living. He made trailers. Forest Service didn't make their own trailers. They had to buy them.
So and that's one person who could know that the trailers were out there. You know what I mean?
He would have been one guy that knew exactly where they were. It's Mike Joyce. He would have known exactly where they were. And it's also stated, we can't prove this, but that Jack Madruga worked for a time on loan from Gateway to work directly for Mike Joyce.
Interesting.
Very interesting. I mean, Shones or not, if Mike Joyce made those trailers, he's my suspect number one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just don't know if he did. I mean, he ain't the only trailer maker in California, but we have some really high-res photos of the trailers, and I wish somebody could zoom in and see anywhere it said Mary Homes.
Branded.
That was the name of the company, called Mary Homes, and they had different floor plans or whatever for the trailers that had names to them. I don't know what they were. There's a couple of articles that go back to the Marysville Democrat. Mm-hmm. But if Mary Holmes made those trailers, we got a different case on our hands.
Absolutely. I hope you guys find something on that. We'll grab a couple from the lines. Fire Pixie, wouldn't she, as in Shones' wife, seen the boy's car up there as well? Why wouldn't you say there's another abandoned car up there? Did she was just only in
that's a great point, because that's Saturday.
Montego.
That's actually Fire Pixie knows her stuff.
No,
I think Fire Pixie, I think you are a female, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I've always assumed you were. That's a great question. That's a great question because I don't know. Maybe Tony knows, or Eduardo, or Anthony, that know it really well, if that's the case or not. Because I don't remember that ever coming up. You think she would say that? Yes.
Yeah.
Not only is my car up there, but there's this 1969 Mercury Montego up there by my car. So actually, the same goes for Sunday because she comes and gets her car on that Sunday, which is now the 25th of February. She should have mentioned the other car, and I don't know if she did. That's a great question. That's why we have these shows, because it's smart questions like that.
Open lines. Pixie's my mod, so she knows her stuff for sure. Did Shones have a gun license? Did anybody ever pull firearms history on him?
I don't know that, but I know from one of the neighbors who I know his son doesn't like me even mentioning his name. I know his full name. Well, I can't remember because there was a message board by what's her name, Megan, who's does all the missing people. I can't. Somebody in the chat knows what I'm talking about. I know they do. So you have to be a member to even get in. You don't pay any money, but you just got to register. Yep. But she's got all the files on all the missing people, and she's covered Yuba before. Nice. But this guy shows up on the message thread for Yuba County 5, and he says, we'll just call him Timmy. And he said that he was Joe Shones' neighbor for a while because he lived with his cousin who was Shones' next door neighbor. And we did verify that he's telling the truth. And he said that his cousin had young children. And these are big, like, these people are basically living off the grid, a lot of them up there. Yeah. This is way up the Plumas. And they're in Berry Creek, basically, which is these big lots, like 5 acre, 10 acre, whatever. Some people go up there and never seen again, right? Yeah. But anyway, his cousin's down on his own land, which is right abuts to Shones. And Shones comes out with a hunting rifle, and he's indiscriminately shooting. And some of the bullets go fairly near the kids that are out there just playing. Yeah. And they called the cops, and the cops showed up, and the cousin said, "Hey man, this guy's like drunk and like taking pot shots at the kids or something." He goes like he's gonna kill them. And he was like, the cops were really indifferent. They were like, "Yeah, that's old Joe. That's what Joe does. Yeah. Call us when someone dies." They were there was always this theory that he was really tied into the cops. Right. But they were really like nonchalant about it. They were like, "Oh, well, that's old Joe." I mean, it was strange.
I read that it was like thought that he was an informant because of the growing, like he had informed on other,
They were growing. That's a fact. They were growing. I know that for a fact. They were growing, and it was apparently. I don't know what the term is, but it was crap weed. It wasn't good weed. It was that terrible. Low grade. It was it was low grade crap from what I'm told, and that's from an insider. Yeah. Who I won't reveal. I won't reveal the person's name, but I know it for a fact.
That's some good scoop right there. That's why.
Yeah, PXF I've got a recording. I've got a recording. So
PXF's got the exclusive with Drew Beeson. Has anybody looked for a connection between Shones and the basketball coach?
We did, but we didn't really find anything. The basketball coach was Bob Pennock. Bob was surprised that no one's ever asked him about it in 50 years. However long it's been since 78, whatever. I know it's a little shorter than that, right? I'm 55, whatever year. I don't even know what year this anniversary is. Shame on me. But Bob was shocked that no one's ever asked him about it. And he kind of comes across as telling the truth. If you read the police files, there's a lot of suspicion on the coach. Mm-hmm. And because the coach did not show up to Montgomery Ward's the day of the morning basketball game for Special Olympics, and they thought,
I think they were
he didn't show up because he knew they weren't going to show up. Right. And I asked him that question point blank on the telephone. I said, "Hey man, I'm just letting you know, in the police files, there's a lot of suspicion about you." And he didn't take offense to it, but he just said, remember, Drew, I had to go through the whole Gateway firebombings, and I was working at Gateway, and the cops could really care less. So I had a bad taste in my mouth for the cops. This is his words, not mine. He said I had a bad taste for the cops because they really didn't give a shit about who was doing the Gateway. We told them it might have been Mike Joyce. They didn't follow up with Mike. They didn't do anything. He said, I had a bad taste. And he said, and also one of the mothers had called him, as per Bob, that morning around 5 a.m. and said that Jack had not come home. None of them had come home to her knowledge. None of the five had come home yet. So I guess he just assumed no one was going to show up. It's kind of weird. You think he would show up anyway, but no one did. I think it was 8 o'clock, maybe 8 a.m., where they were going to leave from that area and maybe caravan over to where the game was going to be held, south of Sacramento. I don't remember the town. Somebody's yelling at me now for not knowing it, but that is kind of weird. But he seems like, like just your average guy. I talked to him for well over an hour. I never really picked up that he was being evasive at all. But no, we never found any connection between him and Shones at all, or a guy that comes up a lot in this case now named the town bully. We never found a connection between Shones and him either.
Interesting. Yeah. I was going to say, like, when the window was down, obviously it's because he was like talking to someone. So it was either like, get out of the
something
car,
happened, or get out of the car by force,
or we need your help, either by force or we need your help. And it was
a ruse, some kind of ruse,
bull crap. You know what I mean? And then as far as Shones, like, you know where I'm from, like, dude, I guess because of the heart attack, he didn't have the strength to push it out. But you think like pop it in neutral,
but he walked 8 miles.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, it can be good.
Wow. So I couldn't walk 8 miles right now on a flat ground.
in perfect shape, you know what I mean?
But 65-degree, whatever it is out there.
Yeah,
I couldn't do it.
In Texas. But like, so pop it in neutral and then roll it back down because you're going downhill anyway,
I think it has switchbacks though. From what I know. My buddy Keith knows it pretty well.
Yeah.
He's been up there at least once. He's trying to go again. And he tried to find the site, and he couldn't find Mountain House. I don't know. He didn't really find, he talked to a lot of the locals up there, and none of them remembered it. No. I mean, he went up there and talked to people that lived around Bucks Lake, because it happened really close to Bucks Lake. The trailers weren't far from a place called Bucks Lake up in the Plumas. And he talked to people that had lived there for their whole lives. He goes, y'all remember anything about the Yuba County 5? And they're like, never heard of it. That really blew him away. They didn't know a thing about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, things are like that, you know what I mean? What was I going to say about that? But there's a couple other more questions here. Did Joyce know Shones?
Don't know. I never found out if they did. Of course, that'd be interesting if they did. It wasn't real populated, especially when you get up to Chico. Yuba City was pretty populated, even though these guys lived in mostly the little towns around Yuba City, like Olivehurst. Like Gary and Ted were from Olivehurst. Ted went to Sterling High School, if I'm saying that right, even though there's a Bill Sterling. I think it was also called, I'm probably getting that wrong, but another high school that was a little further from Yuba City. I'm probably wrong with Sterling. It was something like Sterling. I don't remember. But there was a lot more people around the Yuba City area, but not around Oroville, and then definitely not going up into the Plumas. The boys hated the cold. They did as a group. Their parents all said it. They hated the cold. They had no business being up there. I think one of them had been up there when they were younger going fishing, maybe Bill Sterling. But for the most part, they had no reason to be up there. They didn't want to be up there. A lot of people think, well, maybe Gary just, Gary had such a dominance on them as they believe. And they were scared of Gary. I'm not going to lie. They were. I know that. I know the case well enough, and I'm practical enough to know they were frightened of Gary. But I don't see why Gary would be leaving the basketball game in Chico and just all of a sudden saying, we're going up to the Plumas. No. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Think you would, yeah. I don't like pretty stable. Theories, it's easy to say.
It's easy to blame it on Gary.
But how long until his medicine would wear off? Like it's like 2-3 days from the dose.
I don't know. It would take a while. It would take a few days at least because, as I know, those psychotic medications, the antipsychotic medications, which he was on, and they finally got his balance right. I think he took 3 different ones. And his sister told me that when he was on, I think Cognitin, I might be pronouncing that wrong. When they finally switched one out for that, he was really stable. And for the most part, he had been stable for 2 years going into the disappearance. Yeah, Gary had a pretty checkered past. He was a barroom brawler. He'd been in the military. He got thrown out of the military because of his schizophrenia. He was incarcerated for a while and punched a cop. He tried to attack his cousin's wife sexually. Didn't get away with it, but but Gary had a sketchy past. I'm not going to lie about it.
Yeah.
But he was schizophrenic. I mean, I don't know how much you want to. I'm not trying to defend him, but he was truly schizophrenic. He could hear voices.
Yep.
But the 2 years leading up to the disappearance, from all accounts, he had been pretty stable.
People try to make it sound like as soon as he walked into the woods that he would have been affected and lost all, cognition. It's like obviously it would have taken days. And they, I don't know how many days they would have had in the cold, So it's like
we don't know, and it's surmised that we know Ted made it to the trailer because they found his body there.
Yeah.
And that somebody was taking care of Ted. So there's often a debate, even amongst those guys that know it well. Was that Jackie? Because Jackie was always portrayed as being far more handicapped than he really was. And we know that because we know his family. Mm-hmm. And his family will even tell you, Jackie was, he wasn't that bad. As people make it out to be.
It was all dialed up in the media just to make
it was all dialed up. Early YouTube videos that caught fire. Played Jackie off as just this kind of guy that couldn't read or write. He could read and write. He could ride a motorcycle that you had to start 2-stroke and give it gas. And, I didn't learn how to do that until I was 15. Shoot, he was doing it at 10.
Right.
So he wasn't that bad off, but we surmise that we know that obviously Ted made it. We think either Jackie or Gary made it because it's surmised that Gary took Ted's shoes
switched
and headed out for help. But we don't know if that was early on or later on because Ted's feet were exposed and they found Gary's tennis shoes in the trailer. So that's the biggest. That's what puts the biggest fork in the town bully theory, if you know that one.
Right.
That the family said these are Gary's tennis shoes. So they thought that Gary put on Ted's sturdier leather shoes and just got further out into the snow and passed away further out where they never found him. That
makes sense. We also didn't mention, so they opened a few cans, the military models, C rations, and only a couple of them would have had the knowledge of how to use the opener, right?
Yeah, a P38 can opener. Which they think because 2 of these guys have been in the Army, one being Gary Mathias and the other being Jack Madruga, who drove a truck in the Army during the Vietnam era. Where I think there's still debate if he actually ever made it in country over there, because there's a picture of him with all these hooches in the back. And I know a lot about Vietnam. To me, it looks like Vietnam. Actually, I might show a buddy of mine that's a Vietnam vet.
Yeah, definitely.
I should have showed it to Tony Donnelly, another friend of mine who's a Vietnam combat medic. But I know a Marine that was a heavy combat Marine that I might show that picture to and say, does this look like stateside to you, or does it look like Vietnam? Because he would know it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was 7th Marines, I believe, a heavy combat guy. Still very lucid, even though he got a lot of Agent Orange like Tony. But he would know. I might show it to him because there's always a debate. Did Jack ever make it to Vietnam or not? I mean, his record should show it. But he was a truck driver. That's what he was qualified to do. But the fact is he got into the Army. He was good enough to get into the Army. And I know his cousin very well, one of the few people that ever drove that car. And he said, my uncle could drive. My uncle knew how to turn the car around if he got lost. Trust me, Drew.
Yeah, exactly. He's a driver.
I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, he goes, I drove that car. I'm one of the few people alive that ever drove that car. And the car's long gone. They had sold it. But his cousin, George Madruga, knew the car well, drove with his uncle a lot. He said, my uncle knew how to navigate. Like if he was lost, he would turn his butt around.
They had maps in the car.
He's not just going, Gary's scaring me. I'm going to drive aimlessly up the mountain. All the families were certain that this wasn't just some dumbasses got lost.
No, not a chance. No, they had maps in the car. Like everything points that they could have got out of there,
Yeah. So. Like something happened, like you said, something happened fast when that window came down, either the point of a gun or they were really well known to help people out. It could have been somebody saying, hey, my medication's just over that hill. Or something like that.
My car's stuck. Hey, we're stuck here.
Or my car's stuck.
Can you guys come help us?
We can walk to it.
Would have been easy to do.
One of my crazy theories, I guess you could call it crazy, is that they were taken by Snowcat all the way to the trailers.
No, yeah, I like that too.
That's one of my theories.
Yeah, it makes some sense.
It makes some sense that all 5 of them got there in one piece.
Yep. Yep.
You
It
know,
makes a lot of sense. No, I remember
because
when you,
that trailer was in the middle of nowhere. It
Yep.
was 2 trailers joined by about a common decking. 2 trailers, full size. One had of all the food you were talking about, the sea rations. I think there was a total of 36 consumed. And somebody pointed out to me once, he goes, man, you would think if Gary made it, there would have been far more sea rations consumed than 36. Because there's there's the saying that the other 4 boys would have considered it stealing, because they had the minds of a child, and they would have looked at it as stealing, but Gary wouldn't have. Gary
would have
didn't
known
give
it's
a damn.
survival. Yeah.
If Gary was up there, he would have gone through way more food. Yeah. So one of the answers to that could have been that Gary left early. Gary could have gotten there early, and Jackie could have stayed and took care of Ted.
Yeah.
That's kind of my belief.
Because Gary might have thought the best chance I have is to switch shoes now and go out and try to get help now as fast as possible. You know what I mean?
And that would have been way before the meds worn off. By the time that Ted's body was, let's just say, I think they knew that Ted's body was there for about, let's just say 10 weeks alive. Because they knew that by his beard growth. They had a pathologist look at Ted's beard growth, and they surmised that he was there for like 10 weeks or so. Alive.
I think it might have been longer. It was a pretty long time.
It could have been a pretty long time, just judging by the beard growth. And of course, there was enough food in the second trailer to keep them all alive for a year.
A whole pantry full of food and propane.
All 5 of them.
They never turned on the propane. They could have got heat.
They never turned on the propane.
They never turned on the heat. Or made any fire with books or
there was no evidence of a
matches.
fire. And the window was broken. So it still would have been cold if that cold air is going through that window. But
and it is.
You could make a case for Gary never being to the trailer. Other than the tennis, if there weren't for the tennis shoes, you could probably make a case for Gary never making it.
Even with the shoes, though, I think, as you said, I think he could have came in, maybe cracked those first few cans. Hey, everybody eat right now, and maybe gave him the flashlight or whatever if he found one. And I'm going to go straight out and get help, And you could obviously see.
They did find a flashlight. They don't know if it belonged to any one of the 5, but they found a flashlight way off the way. And no one was ever able.
I thought, or maybe
I don't remember. I think it was like a gold cloth or something. Is that what you're thinking about?
Something like that.
Like a gold, not a blanket, but like a gold cloth or something. And they never really could identify the gold cloth.
They couldn't recognize it to any of them owning it. Cogitating Jen, how close were the cars? I thought it was about 10 to 20 feet apart.
I think it was further than that. I'm not sure. I should consult the Bible here.
That would be a Tony.
I don't know what chapter.
Use a lifeline.
I wish I knew what page. There is such a great statement in here, and I hate to say it, but it has to do with Shones. But it's so funny. Tony, if you could just throw it in the chat and tell me what page that's on, and you know what I'm talking about.
Check out.
It was such a great. It was so well said.
Check out Tony on the Netflix, guys. That's the
Tony was great on the Netflix. The shots of Tony going up into the Plumas were great.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Those
clothes,
they
raids,
really did a good job
in the background. And then, forest,
and then they're talking to Jackie's brother, brother Tom Hewitt, who's married to Claudia Hewitt. Really nice couple that I know well. And man, that part with Tom talking just made me cry like a baby. I was just like, because I know them, and it was really tough.
It's brutal. It's super.
It's gut wrenching. It's gut wrenching.
Yeah.
It's not a gut-wrenching.
Easy story to watch, guys, but like very well done. To watch. Amazing editing, family interviews, as Drew said. Like you really need to see it. It's just prepare yourself because it's not an easy story, but
it's not an easy story. It's not a deep dive at all. Yeah. There's a picture of Jackie. I don't know if you can see it, but let me try to. Left is right and right is left.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Yeah,
it's good.
Look at his arms. Just look at his arms.
Yeah, dude's in shape.
That dude was in shape.
And
that was right. I don't think that was too long before he went missing. I mean, the guy was
it wasn't
really
weak,
good shape.
Guys.
And that's my left is your right. That's Gary Mathias. I was the first person that was allowed to publish that.
Amazing.
That Tammy, his sister, had.
Yeah.
And
Drew's book is awesome.
That's Ted Weir. Great picture of Ted. That's why I like these full-size pictures.
Yep.
And Tony's book are great.
Absolutely.
there's Doc with the bow tie.
Yep.
And then that's Bill Sterling, the other gentleman. So it's Doc, Jack Madruga, which is AKA Doc, and then that's Bill Sterling on the other side.
Yep.
So I think that's all 5. And then, he's got a great map here of where it all happened, going up from Mountain House. Or actually, he starts at the Yuba City area, and then he shows where they attended the basketball game.
Nice.
And then we're talking about way off here. I mean, I don't know if this will show up, but
yes,
this is the Yuba City. This is the Yuba City area right here.
Yeah.
And they were going to the game up here.
Yeah.
That square. That's where the game was.
Yeah.
And they wound up all the way over here.
Yeah. It's way off.
I mean, way off.
Way off. You know what I mean? To say that they got lost.
They were nowhere near where they were going.
Nonsense. I know Anthony had the GoFundMe going on to get some funding up to try to get out there for a search to find Gary. So I'll get the link for Tony's book, and I'll get the link for his GoFundMe as well.
Yeah, Anthony was going to do a document. I mean, there's 2 different people. We have Tony Wright and Anthony Dunne, who's in the UK. It's probably 4 a.m. there, but he's probably, I'm sure he'll watch this later if he's not now. It's 4 or 5 a.m. in the UK where he is. He was going to do a documentary, and he was going to do it a few months ago, but I think he got hurt, and he had to postpone everything because of the injury, I believe.
That's unfortunate. Well, hopefully if he's got, let him know if he gets up there. I'm coming up because I'm driving up. I can make it up there reasonable on a drive.
If you could get up there with your drones and your filmmaking ability.
Yeah, I'll shoot some stuff. I want to go look for Gary.
Awesome.
Help look for Gary. You know what I mean?
But your shots are the best.
I mean, you guys should go look at maps of the Plumas, like Drew was saying, because when you actually see the terrain, you understand how easy something like this could happen. Because it's up there. I don't know if it's like the most treacherous terrain in the Sierras, but it's the deeper out you get, you know what I mean? It's just cliffs and totally untravelable. Never mind winter. I'm talking about summer right now.
Horrible.
I'm talking about summer,
they're the good shots of Tony up there. There's been a lot of forest fires. The bear fire was very destructive to the whole area, especially Berry Creek. I think the bear fire burned down 80% of Berry Creek. Damn. But not the Shones property. But it burned down about 40%. There's the missing persons poster, the original one.
Yep.
Which is in here, full page. Very sad.
So
none of they had quite a bit at the time. It was these families weren't wealthy at all. So it was quite a bit of an effort to come up with the money that they had for the reward.
Absolutely. I'll keep the open lines going. Boys were under duress by the time they got to that spot. No time for rolling up the window. Yeah, I mean, obviously took off, in a hurry, and then didn't bother barricading the window
in a hurry.
Like Drew said, they left that trailer window broken. Otherwise, you think they would plug that up, or like Drew was saying, for the airflow.
Just taping. There was several things.
Stick a sheet in it.
There were several things in the trailer. There was kindling. There was paperback books for kindling. For fire, matches. There was matches in the fire. I mean, in the trailer, there was blankets in the trailer. There was obviously in the second trailer there was propane. Yep. So maybe Gary couldn't even figure out how to turn on the propane, because if he didn't know where it was, I probably wouldn't know how to turn on the damn propane.
I agree. No, I wouldn't, because it was like covered in the fresh snow, like you were saying.
Yeah, it was covered in the snow.
With the window broken, the fact they didn't start a fire inside, what that says is they thought there was a threat outside.
A flute, right? Like you'd have to have you'd have to have a fireplace, right? And vent it out, or you'd burn yourself alive, right?
Do what you got to do for survival, but I was thinking either there was a threat outside, or they thought there was a threat outside. So if they got chased, they could.
Yeah, like they didn't want to start the fire to give away their position.
Like the threat followed up, like they thought the threat followed them. At least
that's what I originally believed.
At least initially, I mean that's the feeling I got. But again, I'm far from the Yuba County guy.
I got that feeling too.
That's just the whole thing feels like that. You know what I mean? Like, Another one. Okay, good.
Another thing taught to me about by a guy named Sean Kell Williams, and he played football for Yuba County High School. He's still out there. He's an actor. when he can be, and then he's into physical fitness and stuff like that. But he's a younger guy.
Yep.
He lives in L.A., but he grew up in Yuba County, and he told me that he, talked to a lot of local people about the boys and about just the time period of 1978. And what he learned is there was just this built-in animosity towards people that were handicapped.
Yeah.
And I just can't wrap my brain around that, but but it's true.
It's a different time.
This different time. There was just, why would you be, have animosity towards somebody that's obviously going to struggle through life?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they were just jealous because their disability, as we'll call it, made them happier people because they were kind of ignorant to some hardcore facts of life.
Sure.
But he really drove home to me about the animosity towards the handicap at the time, which I never could understand that,
Yeah. But it all bespeaks to, as you said, using the R word. And when you see what some of the police statements were, it was all very like, hey, we looked for them, we didn't find them, they got lost. Like it was just open shut.
The dummies got lost.
Why are we worrying about this? We tried to look for them, couldn't find them. You know what I mean? I know you've mentioned this on your show, and
he's a big fan of the case.
Things. Gary walked 500. What was it, from Oregon, Drew?
Yes,
he walked 500 miles.
I would walk 500. Have you seen the video on Instagram with the guy hitting the glass?
No,
singing that song.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
Send it to me. I'll search for it. Yeah,
I gotta say, it's so dang funny.
That's a classic.
Big BR's a big fan of the case.
Yeah.
Gary
was
was
sort of ride home if he did not walk. Could he not?
Yeah, Gary was up in Oregon, where his grandmother lived, and he wound up walking home. He was held up with some meth heads for a while, and I think they kind of held him hostage there for a while. I can't remember. It kind of ties into the grandmother thing because his grandmother, I think, lived in the Portland area, and Gary wound up walking home, I think, from grandma's house as we go, and he walked home all the way to Yuba City, and he lived off of like people leaving food out for their dogs and cats and drinking the milk left out for the cats and dogs. Gary was a hardcore survivor.
Yeah,
he had broken out of like a mental institution, a la Shawshank Redemption, like literally crawling through the plumbing or some crap, and coming out the other end like the movie Shawshank.
Hell yeah, I did it
That's
for real.
That's a true story. The guy, and when he left, like Big B Art was talking about, when he left Oregon, he knew how to make it back to his house where he was living with his stepfather, Bob Clough, and his mother, and like he just like an animal. He just knew where he lived, and he didn't even recognize his stepfather when his stepfather opened the door, but he knew he was home, like an animal would.
It's like muscle memory, like muscle
memory.
The house, like picture, but
he just knew where he lived.
Didn't know who the people were. That's insane.
I mean, Gary was a scrapper, man. He was a survivor if there ever was one.
So there's a few. Not to cut you off, there's a few like super interesting, like I guess rumors, folklore, whatever you want to call it, about Gary. So one is this reoccurring dream nightmare that he was getting lost or getting people. I had a dream I was getting people killed. Do you recall that comment? I thought he told someone I had a dream I got some people killed.
He told that to someone like a girl that was a friend. I don't think it was his girlfriend. He did have a girlfriend at the time. But I don't think it was this girl. Her name was Janet. I don't remember her last name. And what's funny is nobody really remembers her that well, including Gary's sister, who I know well, doesn't remember. Gary had two sisters. One unfortunately passed away, Sharon, way back in the day. But his other sister, Tammy, is still alive, and she's briefly featured in the documentary. And I don't think Tammy hardly remembered this girl, Janet. I think was her name. I hope I'm not getting that wrong, but she said all this bad stuff about Gary. And the real animosity towards Gary started when a guy named Benji Egel, I think I'm saying that right, Egel, it's Egel, who was a writer for the San Francisco. No, I'm sorry. The Sacramento. Oh my God. What's the newspaper in Sacramento?
B, right?
California. Whatever the name of the newspaper is in Sacramento. The Bee. Yeah, the Bee. Thank you. I should know that. Beeson. I should know that. Yes, thank you. The Bee. The
Half your name,
Sacramento. Yes, have my name. Sacramento Bee. You were correct. Thank you. He wrote for the Sacramento Bee, and he wrote an article. I don't know how old it is now. It might be like 10 years old now, somewhere in that neighborhood. But he wrote a very hard piece against Gary because he came up with some information about Gary that no one had heard before, including punching a cop. I think maybe attacking the cousin's wife because the cousin's wife had just recovered from a major surgery, so she was taking pain pills or stuff like that to get over her surgery. So he was trying to take advantage of that by, maybe trying to molest her or something like that, and didn't get away with it, from my knowledge. But but a lot of bad stuff came out about Gary and Benji's article, and I think that really kind of slanted things back towards Gary. Was Benji's article. I'm not trying to blame Benji. He's just a reporter. He's a reporter doing what he's found out, and it's important to know these facts about Gary. I just don't see Gary wanting to run his friends up the mountain. If he wanted to murder them all, he could have done it more conveniently than running them up into the Plumas where he could die himself of hypothermia.
Not only that,
and Gary certainly didn't drive the car back.
Right, 100%. And there's opportunities to do that on the way up there. He could have stopped and pushed him off the dam, and like you said, without driving up the mountain, it's a lot more
gets you into the
middle of the night. Correct. No one's going to see you, and you could turn around and drive home. Where's the rest of the guys? I don't know. I don't know.
They're gone.
Store. I didn't see
them over the the Oroville Dam, which,
like you said, instead of getting yourself stuck up there. You were going to say something before. I cut you off.
When you're talking about throwing them over the bridge, you're getting into what's called the town bully theory. Yeah. I think Shannon McGarvey, who did the Mopac audio, may have come up with that. Shannon did great additional work on this case. That was kind of the framework for everything. She told me that my book was her framework because it was before this awesome book came out.
Yours was the first on the topic, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, mine was the first on the topic. And then I knew Tony was out there working on his. I had actually talked to somebody local that had a crime blog out of Yuba City, and she told me that she had spoken to a gentleman. She didn't say his name, that was already working on a book. Well, lo and behold, that was my buddy Tony Wright. But it took Tony a while to get pull everything together, which is great because this is really far more. You can tell it's a lot thicker than my book. It's far more comprehensive, but I think they go well together.
Yeah, he was doing interviews.
There's a lot of illustrations and stuff in my book, and it tries to put you into the time, and it kind of explains how the boys kind of came together, even though it's in narratives. It's kind of like fictional narratives. It shows you how Gary came to coaching the boys at Gateway, and it kind of tries to pull a little bit of that in. But here you got all the facts.
I really like the way you did that, though. The way it set
straight
the mood.
From the police file. Just setting the mood, the tone,
the story of the house on fire, and
the fire.
Very theatrical. Like yours really would make an amazing screenplay. You know what I mean? Using some of that material.
Yeah, some of that would come in well. All the facts are in this book.
Yeah, I mean both of them together, of course, but
which is really great. But then you get into what we call the town bully theory. The gentleman involved in that, to my knowledge, is still alive, so I won't say his name, even though it's pretty easy to find on the internet. The guy who's talked about in the town bully theory, first of all, I'll say this: he's fully capable of doing it. Second of all, what really works against him is two things. One, the story is the town bully, and this guy was like an enforcer around Yuba City. He knew Gary Mathias well. That's a fact. I'm not saying anything out of school there. It's true. Everybody knows it. The guy was a tough guy. Gary was a pretty tough guy. Gary Mathias. He was a barroom brawler. He'd been in the military. Pretty tough guy. But I don't think he could quite overcome the town bully. So he might have succumbed to him at some level, or maybe in a fist fight. But the theory is that somehow the town bully catches up with all the guys driving home from Chico from the game, and they chase them or make them follow them somehow. We don't know which, to the Oroville Dam. And at some point, they start picking on Jackie Hewitt. And when you would pick on Jackie Hewitt, he'd make this really weird noise, like, or something like that, because he would get really nervous. And Gary Mathias was the guy that would defend the other four. even though they were scared of Gary Mathias, he would still be their defender.
Oh yeah.
And Gary, walked up and hit whoever was scaring Jackie, and all hell broke loose. Apparently, as per the story, and Gary Mathias got thrown over the bridge at the Oroville Dam and never to be seen again. And then the other 4 boys were driven up the mountain road, and maybe at the point of a gun, they shot the gun and said, "Get lost." And they just assumed they would all die, which they did. That's one of the theories out there, and that's called the town bully theory. But, first question is, why wouldn't he just kill them all and throw them all into the water?
Leave witnesses.
Second question is, how did Gary Mathias' tennis shoes show up? Unless he took them off in the car on the ride home, and one of the boys didn't really understand what happened to him and carried him all the way up to the trailer.
Yeah.
I mean, stranger things have happened. Anything's possible.
Yeah.
Anything's possible. I'm telling you, the bully could have done it because he's a bad guy. He had done some prison time, and he's still alive, and he's a bad dude. He had done a lot of bad stuff that I know he did that can be proven he did. He went to prison at least once I know of, if not multiple times, and he was a bad dude, a real bad guy. He's definitely capable, but what's in his way is, why didn't he kill all 5? Is he sure the boys are going to scatter up in the woods and none of them are going to get out? And then why Gary's shoes are found in the trailer? But to counteract that argument, you could say, why weren't more C rations eaten if Gary Mathias was in the trailer?
Yeah, exactly.
Why didn't Gary Mathias start a fire? Or was he scared of them coming up?
The problem with the
problem with this
Yuba
case.
County 5 cases. One hand washes the other, both wash the face. So when you think you have something that goes one way, you just end up zigzagging. You know what I mean? That's the whole
exactly.
Case.
You think you've got it figured out, just like the book says, and you go off in another direction. Once you think you got it figured out, you got nothing figured out.
You just get pulled. Yeah, you just get pulled into both directions. The odds of the boys randomly.
I agree with the statement you just put up. It says the odds of the boys randomly stumbling upon the trailer are astronomical. You're not going to find somebody that knows this case that believes that more than I do. It is astronomical where those trailers were. They were in the middle of nowhere. They were in the Granite Basin, and I remember it took them days after the motorcycle riders reported finding Ted's body and going to tell the authorities, "Hey, we just found this dead guy up in the Plumas near the Rogers cow camp," and it took them days to get to Ted's body because there was so much deadfall, like the trees falling dead. They had emergency cars, they had police cars, and they couldn't even get up to it. So I don't even know how the motorcycles got there. There was so much deadfall.
Yeah, I always wondered that.
I've got pictures of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing they found those trailers. I agree with him. 100%.
So he was kind of leaning into your snowcat theory. He said they wouldn't have survived with their clothing and the time it took to walk there. A powered vehicle snowcat had to get them there. So he seems to be embracing where you're going.
And it went around the mountain road, and we think the snowcat coming around towards Bucks Lake, and then head south into the woods a little bit, going towards the Granite Basin. So originally, when this story was being written about, when it happened, what's her name? Cynthia Gorney, I think is her name. Give me credit for that, Tony, if you're watching later. She was actually in the documentary, and she wrote the first, for the Washington Post, wrote the first long form newspaper article on the case in 1978, late 1978. And they always reported that the car at Rogers Cow Camp was 19 miles from where Ted's body was found in the trailer. And that's really not true. As the crow flies, it was about, I don't even think it was 6 miles as the crow flies. If you took as the crow flies where the car was left. Yeah, but you had mountains and a windy road. So it made it longer. If you took the windy road all the way around, it would have been closer to like 12 or 13. So it seemed like somebody from day one was really trying to make this almost like a cover up, Ross. They never could explain why the trailers weren't searched. And that drove the families crazy, because why wouldn't they drill out enough further out and find that there was these trailers that were unmanned and at least check them? And their defense was, well, it was so far away.
We didn't think we could have never
imagined these boys making it this far. That was their excuse.
Yeah, I had a little bit more on that. So originally the bad weather, didn't the search get called off from the bad weather like early on?
It did. It did.
A lot
Early
like
on, it got
Cooper.
called off. It
Same
got
thing with
called
Cooper.
off. I think a bad blizzard hit the night of, I don't remember if it was late February. They got hit by a big blizzard because they did have a lot of search vehicles out there. They had a couple of helicopters. They had dogs tracking. They had everything you could think of for a search in the snow, especially when they found the Montego up at Rogers Cow Camp. They had, they threw a lot at it, but they had to call it off because the snow got so bad. I think a few days after they found the Montego.
And someone mentioned either Rogers Cow Camp or cabins at Bucks Lake, right? Or the trailers I thought the trailers got mentioned to the authorities at some point, and they're like, "Hey, there's some trailers far out there. You guys got to check that." And they got kind of like a whatever response. I thought, you know what I mean?
I can't remember who that was, but I've heard that.
Yeah.
And they always seem to have an excuse. I mean, remember, we're dealing with multiple jurisdictions here.
Yeah,
you're dealing with dealing with Yuba County. You got Plumas. You got whatever. There's 3 counties involved. Where the boys went missing, all the way up to the Granite Basin, and then back down in Yuba where they were heading it at the Yuba Sheriff's Department. And there was a lot of different law enforcement involved. And there's these, of course, these rumors of Shones being in with the cops, which don't help things at all.
Yeah.
And it was just, and it was like this book says, and the comment was made by, God, I can't remember the name, but it was bizarre as hell. I think that was the comment made by Lieutenant Ayers.
Yeah.
And I think he was the one that was attributed to that comment. If I recall correctly, Lance Ayers was his name, and Lance had gone to school with I think either a couple of the boys or a couple of their siblings, so he kind of felt he did go to Marysville High School. So he felt connected to the case.
Yep. I mean, I heard you mention that before. I got you, Zach. What was I going to say? Oh, the Shones story, right? Didn't he originally flip this story that he was going up to look for cross-country ski areas or places?
He was going to go. True. He was. I don't know where that. I should remember because I used to know his. I think the first newspaper reported that Shones told the newspaper reporter that they asked him why he went up there. Like, what was your reason to leave Mountain House and go up to nowhere in a VW Bug, no less? And it was to say that he was looking to do a cross country ski weekend with his family, which is literally comical. I mean that's comimal. His own daughter said that to Tony. I hope I'm not letting any cats out of the bags, but his own daughter, who's similar to the boys, she has a cognitive impairment called dysphasia. I won't say her name, but she was a little bit similar to boys, but very high functional for having dysphasia. If you look that up, it'll tell you more about that condition. But she basically laughed at that notion.
Yeah, I thought other people who knew him said like he didn't even really cross country ski or didn't even. So it was kind of
he didn't do any of that crap. And
that excuse just flew out.
He got drunk and got his car stuck in the snow is what he mainly did. And he grew bad and he grew bad weed. That's what everybody knew about the guy.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
And I've confirmed that with somebody else, somebody other than the neighbor and the cousin, that lived with his cousin. I confirmed this with somebody outside of that. Because before we didn't have many people that were talking that were living up in near Berry Creek. And fortunately, I found one, and I'll keep his name secret, but he easily proved who he was and how much he knew about the family and told me a lot of interesting stuff.
I believe
no smoking gun, or I would have told Tony, and Tony knows most of what he told me, or probably all of it. We share everything we have as a group. But he told me a lot of interesting things. This guy that knew the family.
Yeah. The only skiing Shones was doing was his car into a snowbank on the side of the road,
Right.
What I mean?
And then you get him unstuck and he wouldn't even say thank you. He'd probably flip you off and throw a beer bottle at you.
100%. It sounded
that's just a fact. I'm not trying to besmirch the man. That's just what I know.
Northern California hospitality. It sounded like Shones had a prior negative experience with one of the boys based on his comments at the Mountain House. Oh, I should have did this 2 years ago. ? quote, Drew.
Oh, yes. Oh, thank God for bringing that up. Whoever brought that up, thank you. He walks into the mountain house, and the lady gives him the 2 Bufferin, and he says to the lady that handed him that worked the bar at the mountain house, after she gives him a glass of water and 2 Bufferin, he makes the comment, "I should have done this 2 years ago." And no one really knows what that meant, and he
Nobody
never
knows what that
elaborated
means.
on it.
Nobody.
I asked his own son what he meant by that. He didn't know. I think he speculated. I can't remember what he
I
speculated.
think it was like
about.
help for his heart condition or something. Was what his son said.
Maybe like 2 years ago, like they maybe it could have just been he was healthier 2 years ago. You know, it could have been that simple.
Yeah.
I did ask his son that question.
It seems weird.
Like your dad said, I should have done this 2 years ago. Of course, if you're thinking nefariously against the Shones, you'd say that, you know, they were going after money or
some sort of setup.
Something.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, something nefarious it could have meant.
Yeah. Trying to steal the car. I mean, it could have been a lot of things, you know, like
it could have been a lot of good or bad.
Trying to steal the car and it got stuck. I mean, it could have been really anything. I don't want to speculate too much.
The interesting thing is that Shones' wife made a beeline for that car with no wings to get it on Saturday.
Yeah, right.
That tells me a lot.
No, I agree.
My buddy told me she was up there to get a gun, a bag of drugs.
Yep.
She wanted something the hell out of that car.
Yep.
That's all that mattered at the moment.
I was thinking gun.
About the cables.
Why I was asking you about the license, because if he has a pistol, we can link up any of that
he
stuff.
Definitely had a rifle. I know that. I know he owned a rifle. I don't know if he had a gun license, but he definitely
could have been the rifle too. I mean, I don't know what the trunk space looks like. Jen absolutely killed this. The good news for law enforcement was that they had a witness and his name was Joseph Shones. The bad news for law enforcement was that they had a witness and his name was Joseph Shones. Page 96.
That comes from this.
That's an incredible quote.
That comes from this. That's such a great quote.
Incredible.
That is a fantastic quote. Yes, that is on page 96, Jen.
Outstanding.
Can't really see the writing, but that is on page 96 of this book. I keep going left to right because.
Could Gary have gotten into a fight with a police officer and got killed, and then the officer tried to cover it up? The cop could have pulled them over at some point. Dude, I never heard that before.
I never heard that before.
Interesting.
That's great food for thought.
Very interesting.
That's excellent food for thought.
Case. That's just, I like that.
Yeah,
that's a wild theory.
That's a good thought. Actually,
and then he went further with
him. That's a great comment that I've never heard.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And then he said like his shoes planted at the trailer, kind of like what we were saying. So then just
like maybe the boys, how the boys were. If Gary took his shoes off, during the ride home from Chico, one of the boys might have kept him just thinking they'd see him again. So that could explain the shoes, because one guy told me once, and I never got it out of my mind, that if Gary Mathias did make it to the trailer, that there definitely would have been more sea rations eaten. Unless Gary leaves really, really early.
Yeah, and I could, as we're saying, it's so tough with this one. I could see it going either way. I'm going to let Drew out in a little bit, guys, because I've had him for almost 2 hours. But before we go, Drew, that one story that the lady says she saw Gary at the bar at the restaurant.
Right, I was going to tell that.
The events. Take that one away, because I think the audience should hear that.
That was Gary's sister, Tammy. He had 2 sisters. One was Tammy. He had 2 half brothers as well, but knew Tammy really well. Of course, Sharon, who's deceased, but Tammy's still alive. And Tammy, her parents, I can't remember the name of the town, but it wasn't in Yuba City, but not far, owned a bar called La Casa Blanca. And Tammy was at the bar, and this was after the boys had all been found. I think this was, I don't know if she remembered the exact time, but it was either late 78 or early 79. I'm not totally sure, but long after they found Ted and long after they found the bones of the other guys. Of course, they never found her brother, which is another great story she tells about that as well. But she was at La Casa Blanca where her parents ran the bar, and she was in the back, and she walked out from the back going to the bathroom or something and walked up towards the bar and saw Gary Mathias sitting at the bar in La Casa Blanca. And was just like, oh my God, that's Gary Mathias. Like, couldn't believe it. And went and got her mom and said, Mom, that's Gary. And the mom looked, and I think the mom may have agreed and said, yeah, I think that's him. And then he got too much attention and made eye contact with Tammy, Gary's sister. So he got up and left the bar. And so Tammy called the police, and the police did like a photo layout, and just to make sure that everything looked right. No, I'm sorry, I lied to you. That wasn't Tammy. That was George Madruga's. That was George Madruga's sister that saw it. I think that was Madruga's sister, not Tammy, because she would have obviously known her brother.
Yeah,
known her brother.
I thought
this was
she went to get
yeah,
her mom, and then they both went to look, and then he was gone.
This
But
was I think Kathy Madruga. Madruga, sorry.
Yeah. Marine is in there.
This was Kathy Madruga, but Kathy Madruga did know. She's right. It's Kathy Madruga. Kathy Madruga did know Gary pretty well. Obviously not as well as Tammy, but she knew him well enough. And so Kathy calls the cops and says, I saw Gary Mathias, and they laid out a bunch of pictures. And they said they were in, and the way she told it to me first was that they laid out like 6 pictures of pictures of Gary, but they were disguised. Like they didn't even have Photoshop back then, but they were like had mustaches on it, made them look different. And that's all weird to me. I don't know if they ever did that, but that's what she told me. Yeah. And she was easily able to pick out Gary, proving that she knew what Gary looked like at the time or something.
Yeah.
But that's all that came of it. But there was multiple sightings of Gary Mathias in Yuba City, at Montgomery Ward, at you name it, stores. So that's where we sit today. Was this a Shones deal? Was this a Mike Joyce deal? Because Mike Joyce certainly would have known where those trailers are if he built them.
Yeah.
We just don't know. We don't. If somebody knew what Mary Holmes trailers look like, we got 2 really high res photos of the trailers, but none of where it says a giant Mary Holmes on it. Because if it did, I'd say case closed. I don't know why Mike Joyce would want to do the boys harm, but we're pretty sure Mike Joyce did the firebombings. So, and he did make trailers, which is interesting. It is. But the Shones deal, it would almost have to be like a botched kidnapping, which I know a lot of people don't like that. But if you took the boys by Snowcat straight to the trailer, what else is it? Remember, this is the days of Chowchilla, where that was a really bizarre kidnapping plot that got thwarted. That happened, I don't know, not even an hour and a half away from here, roughly not even a year after, or maybe before, I don't remember, but same period of time and same general area, Chowchilla happened. So stranger things have happened.
I don't put aside like any of them. I mean, just the crying baby and the red truck thing, because it comes up a couple times is weird. There's that one story
that's bogus. I give that very little credibility.
I get it. There's that one story.
Well, I mean, not just Shones, but the other sighting. I mean,
right.
The Brownsville sighting, I give no credence.
No, that doesn't make. Well, I was gonna say when you mentioned that was after the reward was announced, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Yeah, the one in Brownsville was after the reward.
Taken.
But I think Shones was before. So people would say, well, why would Shones want to call attention to himself by even coming forward?
Alibi?
Well, it could be because Bill Neal saw his car and his license plate.
Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely.
So there's your answer to that. Bill Neal absolutely saw the car.
And
I don't know if he wrote the plate down, but Bill Neal saw the VW and he saw the Montego.
To the newspaper that so Shones would have seen it and known that his car was cited.
Maybe, I don't know. He definitely made a statement to the police.
Okay.
Bill Neal saw that car the morning of Saturday the 25th. Sorry, it was Friday the 24th. They went missing. It was the 25th was the Saturday morning. February 25th, 78 is where Bill saw that the Montego and the VW. So the VW can now be placed up there. The VW was absolutely at Rogers Cow Camp, which we didn't even know when I started this Odyssey. I don't know about Tony, but I wasn't even sure if the car was even in Rogers Cow Camp, but it was. We know now that the car was there.
Yeah, I think he did give like a statement at some point, but I don't know if it was like before or after that. Shones could have reacted. So the final thing we should go out on is the Mopac podcast. Check that out on I don't know if Google Pods is still there, but Spotify, wherever you guys listen.
Just Google the Yuba podcast and you'll find it. Shannon McGarvey did that with Mopac. It's very well done.
Shannon did an amazing job.
It's got a major cliffhanger, and I'll say what the cliffhanger is. It won't matter. You still need to listen to it.
Yeah.
And the cliffhanger is that someone had gotten back into the Yuba County 5 file at the Yuba County Sheriff's Department and considered Gary Mathias's death as a homicide.
Yeah. Investigated as a homicide, which
and
means
we honestly don't know if that was done just to keep the file open, or did they really believe that? We don't know. We still don't know.
I mean, it's cool if one of the detectives put it in there to keep it open, because that's a cool thing to do.
Yeah,
it also kind of makes me believe like they thought he was getting chased, or they thought they were under some threat. Because why else would it be a homicide if he's all the way out there at that point? You know, shouldn't he be 5 miles away from whatever the threat was? So it's like, if he's still being chased to his death, you know, that kind of says it all, right? Like,
but the whole thing with the town bully is, if let's just say the town bully throws Gary into the water and he dies, are you really going to take the other 4 that far up the mountain and just assume they're going to die?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't seem to make much sense, because the town bully could have gotten Gary Mathias by himself at any point. What was the town bully's beef with the boys? You know, the other 4. Right. You know, he could have gotten Gary anywhere. Why is he going to pick then? Is he that mad?
The thing about
he's definitely capable of doing it, but things just don't really line up for him.
His motive, or why take out the motive on them? Yeah, I don't know. It's so interesting that they go to the game, they go to Bears Market, and then basically all we have after that is just a car. You know what I mean?
We have a car. And the trailer. And Ted the trailer.
Okay, once they're found, but I just mean like between the car, the disappearance at the car until the bodies and Ted's body.
And you know, I showed the map, but to get that lost, you would have to go over this long bridge, going over the Oroville Bridge. Like, even any one of the 5 would have known, hey man, we're lost.
It's the wrong way. I've never seen this before. Like a landmark.
They could have stopped in the city of Oroville, which is a fairly big town, not as big as Chico, but fairly big, where they could have pulled into a gas station or anywhere and said, hey, where the hell are we? And Jack knew how to turn that car around. Very simple. They don't need to keep driving up the Oroville Quincy Highway. Just ridiculous. Like the window being down tells it all. And the car not being messed up.
Same, 100%. And the one thing
I was going to say on them.
The one thing I was going to say, being from New Hampshire and knowing mountain towns really well, when it's winter like that and the snow packs are on the side, the snowbanks are on the side, and then you have the buffer of the trees, your voice carries. So if you're yelling help, it's going to carry. It's going to project.
Echo through the mountains.
Yes, exactly. It's going to echo.
It's going to project. No one came to Joe's help. No one came to. Who would not come help him?
If he was yelling for help, they would have definitely heard him. Unquestionably, it would have carried like help. I've had a heart attack. It would have carried farther and projected out into that echo. You know what I mean? So that's why the whole thing is super. Thank you, Jen. Appreciate you.
And just to end on this is one of Tony Wright's great, and it came up on my show once with Tony, was how did Shones make that trek on foot back from Rogers Cow Camp back down to the mountain house without getting hypothermia? I mean, if he was laying down like he said he was every 20, 30 feet, whatever he claims, and you're laying in that wet snow, you're getting wet. And that wet's going to immediately turn into ice. Yeah. You know, even though he's going down in elevation and it's getting warmer, you're still going to get hypothermia. I don't know how he can do that without getting any form of hypothermia.
It melts the snow on your, even if you got the fresh snow coming down on your jacket and then you're laying down in it, like you said, and then you're going down into a higher temperature. Yeah,
it's wet.
The farther you go,
in the wet snow.
More wet. No, but that's how he did it, Drew. No, man, Drew was amazing. I've been wanting to do this topic for a while, and obviously, rest in peace to the Yuba County 5. I hope we can, nothing but respect to the families. I hope
to the boys and the families.
For the families.
It's all about the boys and the families.
Gary, I'd love to get up there and look for Gary. It would be nice to find anything, even if it's not.
It'd be great to find Gary. It'd be great.
Something he had, like me and Drew said, a flashlight.
His glasses.
Anything he
wore Coke bottle glasses. He had started wearing contacts, but at the time that he went missing, his stepfather Bob said he was wearing Coke bottle glasses because, as I found out, Gary fell out of the family sedan when he was a young kid,
Wow.
and it knocked him out bad. Like he couldn't see for like his vision was totally gone for like a week. And
Yes,
then
that was in your book.
it started coming back.
That's crazy.
So his dad always thought a bear's not going to eat these big Coke bottle glasses.
Are you taking Cheney questions? There was a question for you on Facebook, or do you want to take it out?
Oh, I always take a Cheney question.
This is from my boy Zach. It was regarding Slover hearing Gaikowski's voice, and then, basically both of them being in the documentaries. Why wouldn't Slover be able to recognize Cheney's voice if he's talking on camera?
Reason number one is Cheney's voice was never played to Slover. Number one, to my knowledge, anyway. No one was really looking at Cheney as a suspect back then. He had snowballed the police
way
very
off the
well.
radar. Yeah.
I mean, especially coming under the guise of Panzarella, which was smart because Cheney came forward hiding behind Panzarella
shield,
and at the time Panzarella had Science Dynamics and he was a big shot.
Yeah.
Science Dynamics was rolling in money. Computerized medical billing, that ain't going nowhere, right? In the 60s, boom. That was smart to come behind them. And then when you listen to Brian Hartnell's voice when he's being interviewed in the hospital after Berryessa, and then you listen to Brian's voice in This Is the Zodiac speaking, they sound nothing alike. Nothing. That's why I was so interested in the documentary, because Cheney's voice has that old Okie accent in there. And I still believe, even though I'm going against the odds of one of my biggest supporters here saying this, but I believe those were Graysmith's tapes when Graysmith was writing Zodiac. Going back to Nancy Slover, first of all, she's on a old school telephone, and Nancy Slover famously said that John Carroll Lynch, who played Arthur Lee Allen in the movie, the Fincher film, also sounded exactly like Zodiac. She wasn't powerfully credible, unfortunately for her. She had been on the Zodiac tour on the Zodiac party bus, as I know it, before she endorses Gaikowski's voice. I don't know. That's just it's a weak reach, man, as far as I know. And I know the case inside and out.
The question, you know how it is. You're a regular on here on the Zodiac Files. So
I know my Zodiac. I know my Zodiac pretty well.
Question. Sometimes I get a Drew question thrown my way, even though I'm the non-con guy.
I don't know. I don't know if I call Gaik a horrible suspect, but Gaikowski's interest in Darlene Ferrin is absurd to me. I don't know why Richard Gaikowski would give a damn about Darlene Ferrin. She was not even a looker. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to put her down. She wasn't. She was an IHOP waitress, later a Terry's Waffle House waitress. She wasn't some beauty queen. I'm not trying to put her down at all. I'm not. I'm being factual.
And didn't Gaik work down on Mission? So, I mean, downtown, you're going to be seeing a lot better than that. So,
and nonsense about...
I'd hate to say it, guys.
if Paul Stein went to Gaikowski's funeral, that would actually mean nothing. It would mean nothing. It really would.
Journalists, right? Wasn't Paul semi-journalist?
Gaikowski was a San Francisco a writer. Him going to a funeral of a slain cab driver would mean nothing, even though there's zero proof of it. Yeah. There's zero proof of Ross Sullivan ever being in the Presidio. There's zero proof of Gaikowski being at Stein's funeral, even though if he was, it would mean zero. There's just not much there. Stein knowing, who was the other? I think it was Kane. Somebody had a theory about Kane knowing Arthur Lee Allen. There is zero evidence of Kane knowing Arthur Lee Allen.
I haven't heard of that one.
Zero. Absolute zero. Kane shows up at a cipher. That's pretty cool. Don Cheney had a relative with the last name Paradise with the D-I-C-E spelling. I could throw that back on you.
Junior Bakersfield
Paul
Junior
Avery.
College, big hit.
Paul Avery went to junior college with Don Cheney. I think I just blew Gaik out of the cipher right there. I'm a Cheney Gallen guy and I always will be. So bring it.
Yeah.
Bring it.
Yeah. Well, I think Pixie has a big reveal. I think she went up to Tahoe, so I don't know if she solved last while she was up there. But she also might be trolling us. She hits me with the Gary Francis post quite a bit. But that was basically. my statement.
No way Fire Pixie believes it's Post.
No, she's just trolling me. It's not real. Yeah, she gets me.
Yeah.
She gets me going. She gets me going in the chat.
Bundy's a far better suspect for last.
100%. But yeah, that was my
far better.
Oh man, I knew it. See, she got me with Post, and she not even the Post, right? What was I going to say? My statement on the documentary was like, "Hey Ross, how do you feel about it?" And you guys mostly know how I feel about those non-canonical sequences. But I was like, "Hey, I'm happy Drew got some more audio for." That was pretty much what I said.
You know what? I'm gonna have it cleaned up. That's my. I got an audio engineer now. For free. The price is right. I'll put it that way. I had two of my SOG interviews cleaned up by this guy, and I'm gonna have the Cheney audio cleaned up by the same audio engineer.
That's great.
And that's coming down the mountain.
Yeah, Drew was like, "Hey, I got some new Cheney audio," and that's pretty much what I said too. Like, "Hey, Ross, how do you feel about it?" Well, Drew got some new Cheney audio, so that's pretty much my feedback on that documentary.
Maybe we'll break out the spirit box and get Nancy Slover on the line, and
there we go. Get it all taken care of.
I'll get her a couple Bud Light. I'll get her a couple of Michelob Lights.
Well, with that, that's Drew Beeson, folks. I'm going to go out on that note. We're not going to have a better outro than that. So appreciate you, man. Go get the book Out of Bounds, Tony Doug Wright on Things Aren't Right on Amazon, the Netflix, the podcast. I really like the old video you had on your channel too, where you kind of did that narrative with the graphics and the snow and stuff. I'm going to relink that one in the description because that was sick.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I had fun doing that. There's better out there on YouTube because
that was an early one.
But a lot of those early ones took a lot of liberties that aren't right. Yeah, there's a lot of mistakes that we now know are wrong. Now that we have the police files.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Your third show on PXF.
Yeah, I'm glad you did it, man. It's easier to let you do the driving too.
That's why I gave you the option. But hey, man, I put together a couple things on this Zodiac hood inspiration. I'm going to send you a couple things on the back end. I found a couple things I really like. So see if any of it pans out. Doing a PowerPoint this weekend.
We need to jumpstart Zodiac.
Oh, we're about to, man. I'm going to kick it off this weekend with my big Prezzies. So good stuff, brother. Appreciate your time. Cool. Have a good night down there in Texas. Get you back soon.
All right. Thanks, Ross.
Thanks, sir. Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Drew Beeson, Yuba County 5, Out of Bounds. Go get it. The first book on the topic. Man, rest in peace to these guys. Hopefully we can get Gary Mathias find his glasses. Let's get something up at the Plumas. I'm going to post the links below. I'm going to post Drew's channel's already in there. Drew's book. I'm going to post Tony's book. I'm going to post Anthony's. Yeah, dude. Yo. I'm about to go in on this, bro. I've been so obsessed. I've been doing Ned Kelly for like 5 days straight, dude. I can't believe that slipped by me. I don't know how it did slip by me. I'm usually obsessive about those types of things, but yeah, I think the Ned Kelly armor helmet is a massive influence on Zodiac, even if you discount the Australian SWAT bomb suits and the armor and stuff like that. I think Ned Kelly predates all that. So I'll be getting into that, going real big on that on Sunday on the Zodiac panel. And who knows, I might clip it and post it over here for you guys too. So appreciate everybody. You do a little bit of Klingle. Yeah, he's out there. Looks like Pixie posted Out of Bounds. I mean, I'll take 2 minutes and 10 seconds of questions, guys. Thank you. Shout out Patty. Thanks for coming through. Jen, everybody else that came through. Good stuff. Yeah, I've been stuck on Ned Kelly, but I have some other things too. We're going to do some Marvel comics. We're going to do some movie stuff. I found a couple possible Zodiac influences, Zodiac related movies, content that kind of goes along with The Most Dangerous Game and the stuff I've been doing on Patreon, but I have some totally new stuff. Go check out my review of The 10th Victim. That's a good place to start because The 10th Victim is an Italian film that played in November 68 on TV in the Bay Area right before Lake Herman Road. So I think The 10th Victim is a big thing. And then there's also some other films that people have not really talked about at all. We're going to get into those. We're going to get into the Ned Kelly stuff. We're going to get into those other Zodiac influence films. And just some stuff to do with the hood inspiration, because there's been a few that have been posted out there, but I think there's quite a few more. Final 1 minute 10-second questions for me. Rest in peace, Yuba County 5. It's the anniversary. I had to at least get the Yuba County files up here. Thank you, Big B. I appreciate you, brother. Like, sub, share. You can click a join button for a membership. There's 3 tiers of that. It is the Gorilla, the Vigilante, the Inspector, and anybody who's a member, you are going to get exclusive early access to Zodiac Files main series episodes 5 and 6, 7 and 8. You can lock in with me over here. You can join for free with your Gmail, but I mean, there's going to be certain things that are just going to be, my own personal research is going to be, if it's anything big and groundbreaking, it's going to be on there, but it's not going to be public. So deal with it. And that's just how we do over here at PXF. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Really appreciate everybody coming through. Super sick. I'm super pumped about this thing on Sunday, guys. So I'm going to probably get working on that in a bit. But I'm your host, Ross PXF. I'm out. Like, sub, share, click join for a membership. You can join me on Patreon. Hit the store, get your PXF gear, but they're super backed up. Yuba County 5, rest in peace. I'm out. Go check out Drew. Subscribe to the Drew Tube as well. Drew Beeson, and big major shout out to Drew for hooking up the Lou Temple interview of Devil's Rejects, Halloween 31, Axel on The Walking Dead. Go check that out too. That was a banger. I'm out. Yeah, we'll give Drew one last plug because he's the man. Sub to the Drew Tube, Missing Persons, and Drew Beeson True Crime. That is it for me, my friends. You guys can always reach me for some Q&A back and forths on the X platform, and that's the easiest place to get me. Get me on there. Back on Sunday. And the Zodiac shows are coming back real soon. I'm booking them now. Expect full updates and the Paradigm Review show schedule posted Friday, and full update then.